Welcome back to another episode of Rob Sports Center. Man, I got a good video for y'all today. So for those who don't know, a lot of you guys that watch my channel probably felt me because I was doing old school basketball reactions. I kind of went away from that for a while and I was doing my football and stuff now. But I think I'm going to get back involved in this. And the reason why is because I seen a very interesting debate. Now, disclosure. I'm not one of those LeBron haters. I'm not one of those guys. I'm an old school basketball fan. Obviously I grew up being a Kobe fan, but in recent years I have kind of been converted to a MJ, but Kobe's still my guy. But I have respect for LeBron and everything that he has brought to the game of basketball because there's no doubt that he is by far, it's not even close, one of the greatest to ever lace up a pair of sneakers. Let's get that, understood first. So this is not bashing LeBron by any means necessary, but it's about having a debate. So this video might have been like a year old. I was just sitting there and I ran across Shannon Sharpe and Stephen A. having a debate about LeBron and Mike. And, Stephen A. was pretty much saying that LeBron was his number 2, which I can agree, and Mike was number 1. So, but Shannon Sharpe, for whatever reason, I guess he felt that LeBron wasn't supposed to be number 2, and I guess he's supposed to be number 1, I guess, whatever the case may be. So they having a debate, and they both trying to plead their cases on to why they believe that, this person is ranked here and this person is ranked there. So they start going back and forth. It started getting a little heated. So Shannon came out and said, he said one thing I didn't agree with. So he said, I hope my chains isn't jiggling too much in the background. Let me kind of tuck them in. So one thing that he said that I didn't necessarily agree with, he was talking about the players today. And he was saying that the players today are more skilled. So, he was basically saying that when Mike was playing, Mike was beating what J.J. Redick like to call them plumbers, firemen, guys, that are basically trying to discredit the wins. Now, we got to understand one thing, right? The guys that Mike played and that he had to play in his era was in his era. So you can't try to base that off of who LeBron had to play. Because you can do the same thing from the back in the day with Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, them, then going into the Larry Bird, Magic Mikes, and then going into the Kobe's, and then going into this era with LeBron. And years from now, because the game evolves, people are going to be saying the same thing about LeBron, that he was playing against plumbers or whatever the case may be, because the game evolves. It's different. When you watch the style of play today, it is so much different than the style of play back then. So, yeah, was the game more physical back then? Absolutely. You know what I mean? Are the guys in today's era more athletic? You can say that. Obviously, based off advancements, that's going to happen. But I wouldn't necessarily say skill, because skill is one of those things. Okay, so prime example, let me show you what skill is. Take a guy like, I'm going to use Mike first. Look at Mike. When Mike first came into the league, Mike was jumping out the gym. Mike always was jumping out the gym, but I'm just saying, from what I've seen, he was jumping out the gym, and I feel like he relied more so on his youth and his athleticism, right? As he got older and the athleticism wasn't as potent as it was early on in his career, obviously, because he's a human and you're going to decline with age. It's no solution for that. He relied on skill more so. So when you seen Mike operating around the mid range, when you seen him being a technician the way that he was, the MJ fadeaway, that's not athleticism. That's skill that works to take and to develop that. Skills, for me, in my opinion, and I guess somebody else might view it a little differently, but for me, skills is fundamentals. You know what I mean? So when you look at, let's just say, for instance, we're going to jump to football briefly. When you look at a guy in terms of a quarterback and his fundamentals and his progressions he goes through in his throwing form, that's skill. Because it takes you to sit there and drill that constantly. Like when you first go to a boxing gym, the first thing that they're going to do, a good coach that is going to make sure that you have the foundation of everything else, and that's going to be your footwork. So you got guys that get away like Deontay Wilder. He by far is not the most skilled boxer in history, but he has what? Power. That can be considered athleticism, because that's something that you just naturally have. So you can dominate a lot of guys athletically, but as time goes on, that gap is going to start to close, because that what you had athletically is going to start to leave, and it's about what can you do skill wise after that. So that's an analogy that I'm gonna use from there. So I wouldn't even say that, man. You can say the guys nowadays are more athletic. Yeah, you can say the guys in today's era shoot more threes, but that doesn't mean that they was necessarily better shooters of the guys back in the past. The game was just different back then. Back then, it wasn't a high volume of 3-point shooting. When you look, and he also used, he said, okay, he was like, name me a team that Mike played back then like the Warriors. Well, I'm saying to myself, well, Shannon, obviously, look at what the Warriors do and look at what they've done so good within that dynasty or within that time, and just look at the way the game has went after, bro. They wasn't shooting like that back then. You didn't have no 7-foot small forwards at the time that was dribbling and shooting threes that I know about. If you had a guy who was 7 foot, 6'11", 6'10", you in the paint and you banging pretty much, or you just gonna be a defensive enforcer pretty much. That's it. It wasn't none of that 3-point shooting and stuff. So you can't say that because that didn't exist at the time. Now you can say, okay, we had guys like Scotty that kind of showed you what the future could be. You can say you had guys like Magic, who was like a point forward, who showed you what it can be. But it wasn't to that degree because of the advancement of the game. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. The 3-point shot got introduced maybe 1979, 80 season. I remember Bird came into the league, I believe 85, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember it was being introduced, and he came a little bit after. But you got to think about it like this. Prior to it being introduced, how many players for the most part were actually practicing that? Like, how many coaches was saying, hey, we're going to do 3-point shooting drills? And even when it got introduced, that still wasn't and it still isn't today a high percentage shot. Being in the paint and banging as a big man was by far a high percentage shot than shooting threes. Even as a smaller guy, driving in, getting to the rim, that was higher percentage than shooting threes. So you might say, okay, the guys nowadays, they're better shooters. Well, yeah, because they shoot a lot more. If you're shooting, 10 3-pointers at a game, I would assume for you to be shooting higher percentage than the guys back then who might have shot 1 3 a game, 2 3s a game, or 1 3 every other game, because it wasn't a high percentage. It wasn't a high percentage shot. Like, it even made me think about the finals with the Bulls and the Trailblazers, and how the Trailblazers, how Mike was able to make 6 3-pointers in that first half. And, everybody probably was looking at him like he was some type of freak because it was unheard of. But you look at it now, the volume of shooting these guys doing, these dudes are almost hitting that in 1 quarter. Like, I was watching a high school game last night. I kid you not. And there was a kid in that game. I think that dude might have took 6 threes in the first quarter. He hit 4. I'm just saying, but look at the attempts. Even if you look at the field goal percentage from back then to now, it was different. It was higher back then, I'm assuming, because of the way the game was played. So it's not to discredit the newer guys, because I enjoy watching the newer guys play. But even if you ask me, it's just the effort, the intensity, the drive, the fire. You look at the way that the ratings for the game is today, how they've declined. You know what I mean? And you look at the game, the way it was played back then and the way that it was played now, you understand why it has declined, because it's not that same level of competition. Like, I was looking at, we're coming up on, tomorrow is going to be the conference championship for the NFL. And we got Buffalo and Kansas City playing. And that's like a rivalry game over the last few years. They've had some phenomenal games, but those two guys want to beat each other, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. So it builds that competitiveness to where it's not like we hate each other, but at the end of the day, I don't necessarily, when we line up and put them pads and them helmets on, I don't like him, he don't like me, that's understood. We're going to compete while we're in between these white lines. We're going to try to keep it as respectful as possible. We understand that emotions flare, but at the end of the day, once we're done, now we can dap him up and say, hey, man, go win the Super Bowl, or hey, man, you're a heck of a player. But while we're in between those white lines, it's a battle. Like I seen with Lamar Jackson, they was asking him about Josh Allen. And I guess they was asking him, did he have a relationship with Josh Allen? And he was pretty much just like, not like a personal relationship. He was like, man, I want to beat him. You know what I mean? He's like, I'm trying to beat him. He's like, I'm not trying to be his friend. And I was like, and that's what the game is missing in today's NBA. And I know that's kind of getting off the topic in terms of the Mike and the LeBron debate. But for me, that kind of just stood out about just hearing Shannon say that. And I was like, nah, man, Shannon, I respect you. But I can't let you get away with that one, man. It's hard to really compare those two, because in terms of how he was trying to say, because of the time. If you go back, like even when he said, when he was like, when Shannon was like, who has LeBron beat me? Who has Mike beat? And he was like, he beat Magic. And he was like, oh, that was the old Magic. Well, I mean, if you really want to say that, you can say that about the Spurs. It was an old Spurs team when LeBron beat them. I was like, so we can sit there and do that all as much as we want to. And here's another thing. So another thing that you can even probably play with LeBron. Okay, cool. With Mike, how many Hall of Famers did Mike play with? Like, I'm talking about, like, all-stars, guys that was really that guy other than Scottie Pippen that I know of. You had other guys that were good role players like Tony Kukoc, but I'm talking about how many of these guys could actually went on to be on to a different team and be that number one guy. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm asking. We know throughout LeBron's career, LeBron done played with D-Wade, Bosh, Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis. He done played with some of the best to ever play the game. You know what I mean? So when you look at the guys and who Mike beat, well, he beat Magic. He beat Clyde. He beat Charles Barkley. He beat Gary Payton. He beat Karl Malone and John Stockton twice. So it's just like, I had to chime in on that one, man. I had to briefly chime in on that one. And I'm assuming that I'm about to have some I can already know that we finna go to war in the comments. I know a lot of LeBron fans finna come in and take it as if I'm hating on LeBron. I'm not. I'm just stating the obvious facts of the situation, but I'm up for the debate. So, man, feel free, if you're a Michael Jordan fan or if you're a LeBron James fan, man, to get in the comments and let me know if you agree on something or if you disagree, or let me know that I missed something or if I didn't elaborate on something enough, man. But if you did enjoy this video, do me a big favor, man. Smash that thumbs up button. Also, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. And when you subscribe, click that post notification bell where you be notified every time I upload, because I got more videos like this coming. So stay tuned, man. I'll see y'all in the next video.